If she's a mountain, then you're an ocean.
Hi, everybody. This is Lori, and I am the founder and CEO of a company called Inclusivi-TEA and the author of a new book, You Can Save the World. In fact, you're the only one who can. And this is our podcast, Inclusivi Talks Sustainability. And on our podcast, we interview amazing people who are living sustainable lives and showing incredible creativity. So our mission is to sort of meld that creative and sustainable spaces and show how they overlap. And so today we're really thankful to have with us Marjorie Wildcraft, who is a proponent of growing your own food. And not only is she a proponent, she's actually written a book telling everyone how to do that and how to do so effectively. So Marjorie, thank you so much for being here.
Hey, Lori, thanks for having me on the podcast. I'm excited.
Well, it is exciting to talk to you. I was just reading your book, and I mentioned before we came on air that what I love about it is that it's so practical, and the information is so detailed and easy to follow, which I personally need if I'm using any kind of a self-help kind of, or a do-it-yourself kind of book or instructions. I really need that spelled out for me. So I appreciate that very, very much.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what the book is designed for. For many years, I have envisioned the time that we're in right now, where people would need to be able to grow food. And humans are amazingly, it's a long-term solution to a problem that's going to hit us short-term crisis. And so for years I've been looking at what is the fastest, easiest, funnest, most effective way to grow meaningful calories and nutrition, and how do you distill that down into something that people who don't know anything can do and be empowered to do. So that's what the book's about. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm glad you got it.
Well, it's perfect. It's very clear. So that's where you are now, Marjorie. You are teaching the world. I mean, that is your goal, is to spread this around the world and get people to really understand that to create a sustainable future means taking care of some of our own food needs and having that be sort of a small growing for ourselves, making it more local, smaller.
There are three reasons why it's absolutely imperative, like it's not optional anymore. Yeah. The first reason is the commercial food supply is essentially both toxic and devoid of nutrients. So if you've been wondering why you're sick or why people are obese, it's because there just isn't anything in the food supply. And really, there's a dirty little secret about organics, and that is that they're not any more nutritionally dense for the most part than conventional. Now they're good because they don't have all the anti-nutrients and the toxins in them. But in order to get the nutritional density that you need to be growing your own food. So that's number one. Number two is commercial agriculture is the most destructive force on this planet. And it's just horrific, not only what we're doing to grow crops, cereal crops, with the, what it creates in terms of dead zones in the oceans and the unbelievable chemical toxicity, but then the horrific way that we produce meat. We are, I don't even think we can be called barbarians. It is horrible. So that's the second reason, is the existing systems for commercial food production, large scale, are just atrocious and have to stop. The third reason is genetics. Most people don't realize that most of the genetics for our heirloom varieties of plants in gardens are gone. Like some 90% of the heirloom varieties that used to be around maybe 100 years ago are gone today. And the same for home livestock. There just aren't as many varieties of pigs or chickens or geese or different livestock that we depend on. Really, the last big push for backyard farming was in the Victory Garden era. And then since then, it's all been dropped. And if you don't have people continuing to keep the genetics up, growing seed, harvesting them and saving them, you lose them. So those are the three big reasons why it's not optional. It's for you personally, for your health, and also for the planet.
So Marjorie, I want to get back to talking about your book again in a few minutes, but I'd like to start by just asking you, how did you get here? So what was the path? And what I'd love to hear is sort of the earliest memory you have of actually maybe not even caring about this exactly, but that you can kind of track to caring about this and how that came about.
Well, I did not grow up in a hippie family or anything like that, in a commune living off the land. I actually grew up in a suburb of South
Mhm.
Florida. Um, I've just always been interested in plants, but there's no farming or gardening
Yeah.
at all in my family lineage. Really, where it really hit me that I had to start growing food was I was volunteering. This is way like 20 years ago. Um, I was volunteering with a group to get locally grown organic vegetables into the school system for
Mhm.
lunches, right? Super slam dunk. We thought this was going to be successful, easy to do. I mean, there's grant money from the state and the federals. The teachers wanted it, even the students wanted it, parents wanted it, everybody wanted it, right? And and we had a really amazing group of volunteers that were the people that really get stuff done. And it was the third night we were meeting. I'll never forget it. It changed my life completely. We're in the Red Rock Community Center, which is just what you're thinking, that rickety old echoey building with the flickering fluorescent lights and the chip formica table and the chairs. You're not really sure if they're going to hold you up. Um, and we're following the agenda. We're so excited. And then it came to the point where we were going to put pen to paper on all the farmers who would provide these vegetables. And between all of us, we pretty much knew everybody growing. This is in Texas, by the way. We were outside of Austin. We all. I'm the president of the Organic Farmers and Gardeners Association, the president of the Organic Gardeners. Yeah, I mean, we had all the people in the room,
Yeah.
and we realized there's there's not enough food growing locally. There's not enough local organic farmers to produce even part of the vegetables for one small rural elementary school. And I we I started shaking because I knew everybody in that room knew that there's only 4 days worth of food supply in the grocery stores. If anything ever happens to that just-in-time trucking system, I don't know, what is the population of Texas? About 20 million. I mean, I just didn't realize that all those Willie Nelson concerts to save the family farm had not been effective. And I just started shaking. I had nightmares. I had panic attacks. I just couldn't bear the thought of my small children looking at me and not having anything to feed them. And I went on a tear and I said, you know what? Whatever I've done in my life previously, that's insignificant. I need to learn how to grow food and I need to teach other people how to grow food because we are headed into a crisis of some kind of proportion. Um, and this is the solution to it.
Mhm.
And I used to always joke with God. I'm like, hey, why me? Like, I don't know anything about this.
Yeah.
But they always say if you're the one that sees the problem, you're the one that's supposed to fix it.
Yeah.
So there you go.
So it sounds like a very pivotal moment.
It was. It
And
absolutely was. Yeah.
and how did the other people at the meeting in the town and as well as your family and friends, how did they react to this change? Because it sounds like it was a definite change
Yeah.
at that moment.
That night, I don't know how. Nobody ever said a word. We all just disbanded. I mean, I was responsible for the building, and I just remember seeing the chairs shaking because I couldn't put them under the table, and I had trouble locking the building and turning the lights off. And
Yeah.
everybody, we just all dispersed. And yeah, it was horrible. There really wasn't anything other than me creating the Grow Network and going on a tear to build a whole self-reliant community and figure out how to grow food and what's the fastest, most efficient ways to teach people how to grow food. And but I think the shock of it was just all of us. None of us knew what to do. It
Yeah.
was I think in the back of your mind, like I've always grown up in suburbs and lived in
Mhm.
cities, in the back of your mind, you're always kind of thinking, well, if something bad happens, we're going to go out in the countryside and get some food, right?
Right.
You know, in fact, I've been on radio shows where people have told me, well, my backup food plan is I'm going to go take my gun and get the food from you, right? You live out in the country. And I'm like, you guys, there's no food in the countryside. And when that really hit me, I I I just couldn't. It was like, oh, I'd had a successful career as an engineer, and I'd had a successful business as a money manager, and I'd done all these other things, and it's just that wasn't significant anymore. I said, I've got to address this issue. And as the years went by and I built the Grow Network and we did all this, I've also realized just how destructive the food supply is. And it's got to change anyway. It's just got to change. So here we are.
Um, it's an interesting thing because you talk about this and leaving the meeting, and it sounds almost like everybody at the meeting was sort of like a deer caught in headlights. Just
Very
the
much
sense of I don't know what to do. And I actually started my company Inclusivity with the same feeling. It was in November 2016, 2017, no, 2016. And I remember all my friends we all felt like the world was going a direction we didn't want it to go.
Mhm.
But I saw a lot of people who were just paralyzed and didn't have any idea what to do. And I think I felt the same compulsion that you did, which is okay, so now this wasn't what I was planning. I was certainly not thinking about starting a company or speaking about justice or sustainable living or any of this, but here it is, and I have to.
Yeah,
And it sounds like that's where you were. It's just there's really no option here. I have to do this.
you basically got it. Yeah.
How long ago was this,
This was
Marjorie?
back in 2001.
Okay. So
Yeah.
in 2001, you realized what was coming and you jumped. So 20 years ago, you recognized this need.
Yeah, it also correlated to I had been running in the late 90s. I had built up a very, very successful money management business. I was structuring high yield limited partnerships, buying houses in Austin, Texas. I had been a student of Robert Kiyosaki's, the guy Rich Dad Poor Dad. In
Yeah.
fact, was the lead testimonial on his Time Life video infomercials, which is something I'm not sure if I'm proud of or ashamed of.
Yeah,
But
life is like
anyway,
that, isn't it?
right? But I had this really successful business, and I was looking, and I had basically forecast that there was going to be a major economic collapse. I basically forecast 2008.
Mhm.
And of course, a major life change happens with, there's usually 4 or 5 forces that slam you from all different
Yeah.
sides. There was the elementary school project, and then there was my realization that this whole thing was the economic collapse thing was going to happen.
Right.
And it was horrifying to see the talking heads in 2008 through 2010. Now, what I underestimated was the ability of the U.S. government to continue to create add $1 trillion a year, if not more, to keep the thing afloat for what essentially would be another decade. I am super super grateful for that, because it has kept us going. But we
Yeah.
really are at the end of the rope here now.
Yeah.
So it really it
So,
really is
so
time.
Marjorie, what is over this 20-year period? What is just something that maybe was magnificent that you weren't necessarily predicting, or that first day when you were starting it, you wouldn't have said, of all the good things that are going to happen, this is one of them. Is there anything you can think of that was a surprise?
Ab- Absolutely. The healing on so many levels.
Yeah.
So eating good food, being outside in the sunlight, gentle movement, the garden yoga healed me from so many. I mean, severe allergies, all kinds of minor ailments.
Right.
My own strength and endurance I'm in much better shape now than I was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Um, Emotional healing. Right now, there is a mental health crisis, and it's not going to be solved with drugs or with therapy. It's because people fundamentally in their gut know something is broken in the system.
Mhm.
And being able to provide for yourself, being able to go directly to the earth, which is a saving grace in this whole situation, is you
Yeah.
can still go in your backyard. You don't need a military, industrial, governmental complex to feed you. You can still do it directly with the earth. And knowing that I can produce that and work with earth, there's an emotional balance and
Mhm.
calmness. And then spiritually, just connections. It's kind of like the friendships, with interactions with the animals or the plants or the responsiveness or the spiritual connection you make when you start interacting directly with nature, regardless of your religious tradition,
Yeah.
it deepens. And it's been an incredible journey. I would never go back. I'm so grateful for that night. I mean, I clearly would have never done that on my own without a crisis.
Yeah.
But
Well,
it's been
yeah.
the best thing that ever happened to me, you know?
Yeah. I love that. For me, it's been meeting people that I don't think I ever would have met, and this diverse, expansive gloriousness of who we are as a broader people. And I'm thankful for that every day. And for the ability to talk to people like you, to get to you are now in that network of people that I'm like, oh my goodness, I would not necessarily have met you. And how thankful I am to have that human connection. I do have to, before we move on, just say a little caveat. I'm actually a geriatric psychologist prior to owning the company, and I just want to throw in that I think that everything you're saying is right on as far as we need to connect with nature, and eating better food is so much better for us psychologically. But I also think therapy is sometimes very helpful.
Yeah, well,
I'm just throwing in this
I
that
get no the human
we
connection, a cup
we
of
do
tea.
need, right, we do
I
need
get it.
people, and we do need that. So I'm just throwing that in there. So if any of you who are listening are in therapy, we're not actually telling you not to be in therapy. We're just saying there are other things that you can do that will also be tremendously helpful on this path. Is that fair, Mary?
That's
Or Mary, is that
absolutely
fair, Marjorie?
absolutely fair.
Okay.
Yes, that's
So were there any things that you learned that were hard? That are there things that you learned that you were disappointed in, or that were discouraging?
well, when I started the journey, I was a raw vegan. I was exploring that diet. I've been on every diet, like I think I've been on as many diets as Oprah, maybe more. So,
Okay.
but I was a raw vegan and living in Central Texas. Central Texas has very, very, very variable weather patterns. Like you can be in a desert type pattern for a while and then be in a monsoon pattern, streams of heat and cold. It's a really, really challenging place to grow food, which a lot of people said that's great because if you can grow and produce there, then you can
Right.
grow anywhere.
Yep.
Um, and the really, really, really harsh reality for me was that animal products are much, much easier to produce and they produce more calories and more nutrition. And I thought, well, maybe that's just because I'm in Central Texas and I went traveling all over the place. Certainly the further north you go, if you can bag an elk in Colorado, you've got meat for the winter, which is huge.
Right.
But I even spent a lot of time in the tropics, Hawaii, Costa Rica, and spent time with, homesteaders, 20-year homesteaders that were like, you know what, even down here, animal products. And that was really harsh. I didn't really want that to be that way.
Right.
Certainly, eggs are not a problem. I don't mind eating eggs and taking eggs from the hens and giving them feed and the relationship. But having to home butcher animals was not in my plans. But you can give them a really, really wonderful life, and and at the end do it with a lot of graciousness and and care and compassion. And, I think that for me was one of the biggest disappointments, because I had really hoped I could make it on a like a plant-based or a fruit-based,
Right.
and it's just extraordinarily difficult.
Have you explored at all insects as
Yes, I
pro
have. I
Okay.
did. I went on an insect binge for a while. Well, if you want to get on the media, you can tell them you leave insects, and they'll put you on camera immediately.
That's funny and
Uh,
probably true.
yeah, there's a lot of really good nutrients, and they're real
Yeah.
easy to grow. Um, you definitely have to get over the. I used to have a lot of fun with it. Actually, I had a friend of mine who was eating insects. Right, his name was Alan. He's kind of crazy. He's one of those kind of fringe crazy people. And I said, Alan, I'd really like to eat insects because I would like to be able to do it. It's good to do things during
Yeah.
good times. So that way, when hard times come, you don't have a couple of things to get over,
Right.
right? So I said, I'd like to eat some insects now. So I kind of, you know, I said, I think I know, but it's gross, right? I said, but I think I know what'll help is I was really good at throwing parties. I said, let's throw a really big party, and with possibly a little inebriation and the peer pressure of a lot of my friends, I could
Mhm.
probably eat some insects. So we did. We threw this big party behind my barn, and about 30 people showed up. And Alan, we stir fried up grasshoppers, and it really wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
Actually, I really found that I really enjoyed scorpions, and it was kind of fun because after we did that, I was like, okay, I did that, and I was like, I don't think I'll ever eat them again, though. So I said, hey, Al, let's do this again next year. We ended up doing it for 10 years, and it got
Wow.
so big. We ended up taking like up a huge chunk of Austin's Zilker Park. 'Cause so many hundreds of people came to this
That is
insect.
awesome.
It was crazy.
So I interviewed for the podcast a couple weeks ago a woman who started making cricket dog treats for her dog because the dog was allergic to so many other things and kept getting sick. So she
Uh-huh.
did some research and started making them. And she grinds it into flour.
Yeah.
And then it's this high protein flour. And it was very sweet because she has like a hotel for them, like literally built this cricket perfect living environment because she said
Yeah.
because she was vegetarian and she said if I'm going to use these crickets, then I'm going to give them a beautiful home for the 7 days that they live,
Yeah.
and then I'm going to put them to sleep by slowly lowering the temperature because it's
Hmm.
an incredibly humane way to put them to sleep. And then she makes flour, and so my husband and I have talked. Our goal is within a couple of years to move on to a farm and to grow our own produce, and potentially to start a little cricket sanctuary where we can grow protein.
Nice.
So,
Yeah. I've eaten a lot of like chocolate chip cookies
yep,
where they'll use a percentage of the flour as cricket meal. And, quite frankly, it just tastes good. I mean, you don't really notice. It's not like it doesn't have a strong taste. It just adds a higher level of protein content.
that's what I'm thinking is that cricket meal probably doesn't add a strong flavor. So
No.
for you, kind of coming to terms with that, that must have been hard because it sounds like your inclination was vegan. Your inclination was at the very least vegetarian, and to say, we shouldn't be eating meat. Like animals have a right to live. So it must have been a hard,
Who wants to kill an animal? I mean,
yeah,
nobody. And who has those skill? I didn't have those skills.
yeah,
I mean, that's been gone from our collective experience for a long time. Although years ago,
yeah,
like in like during the Waltons, remember the Depression era back in
of
those
course,
days and earlier, it used to be when Mama said, "Go get me a chicken." She told it to the kids. What she meant was go to the hen house,
yeah,
pick one of the hens that's probably not laying as well, butcher it, defeather it,
yeah,
feed the intestines to the dog, and bring me the thing ready to cook.
yeah,
Then, like, I mean, everybody knew how to process small game. It was just everybody knew how to tie their shoes. You know,
yeah.
it was, it was just, it's a skill that's gone.
So if you had to sort of in a nutshell tell us what your life philosophy is, what drives you, what is sort of at the core of your belief system, what would you say it is? How would you describe that?
Wow. Well, I believe that that this planet is a gigantic school. and that my main purpose in life is wisdom, um, and experiences and learning and growing and expanding as much as I can into love and being loving. Um, so how does that tie into growing food? I don't totally know, except for that I also want to keep this body as healthy and vibrant as possible. And actually, I'm starting a community garden, which is another expression of creating
Mhm.
friendships and love and sharing. So really, I'm here. If you asked me, I mean, I've got a good degree in engineering, and I've worked in that and money management, and all these different things. And the thing that unifies it is I'm just really seeking wisdom.
Mhm. And it seems like want to share your wisdom when you find it. You're not seeking wisdom and then hiding, keeping it to
Yeah,
yourself. It sounds
I
like your goal is
it's
to share it.
it's kind of a thing. I'm really an introvert, and to be honest with you, I would love to just be in my backyard and do my research
Yeah.
and never talk to anybody. But
You're quite
I see.
socially skilled. If that's how you feel, you're really good at compensating.
But I see where we're at, and I see what's coming. Just briefly, the global food production in China, U.S., and the Brazil, which are the three biggest producers on the planet, has been down this year. The U.S. is in a severe drought with the global food supplies. Global food production is down, and then we're still having tons and tons of supply chain problems, whether it's COVID or whatnot. It's not getting fixed. It's not getting better. It's actually deteriorating. We may have gone over some precipice where I don't know if it's recoverable or not.
Mhm.
Um, and then we have food inflation. I mean, when the US government creates trillions of dollars, that is going to roost. And we're already seeing food inflation. So this is the time. It's time to start growing food. And having been someone who came into it from a place of total fear and panic, and then found out what an incredibly healing journey it is, I'm not afraid to tell people, look, we're about to have a crisis,
Yeah,
get ready, do this. And it's going to be really incredibly good. Like, it's going to
right.
be great. It's going to be great. Just get going.
Marjorie is a strong proponent and advocate for growing your own food, and in fact, wrote a really wonderful book just about that. So we'll talk about the book in a minute. But Marjorie, last time we talked about how you got here and sort of what your philosophy on life is. And it sounds like your philosophy is really wisdom and sharing that wisdom.
Yeah, that's it. And at this point in time, the wisdom that is most needed on the planet is how to provide for one of your most basic needs, and that is feeding yourself. So here
So
we are.
and I think that's perfect. And I would like to know, you talked about wanting to spread this around the country, and I'm wondering if there are places or situations where it is even more difficult. I think it's hard enough, I'm guessing, just with anyone. Convincing anybody that they can grow their own food when it's something we're so removed from at this point is probably daunting in and of itself. But I'm wondering if there are particular communities or areas that you have concerns about.
Well, when I first, if you remember from our previous conversation, I have been aware of this kind of a situation that we're in now for more than 20 years. And I spent a lot of years on the road just asking myself that question: where is going to be a good place to go through, economic collapse, major planetary changes? What would be safer? And I
Mhm.
spent a lot of time studying, interviewing survivors of different kinds of collapse, either economic collapse or civil war, natural disasters. And most people, there's a great myth of survivalism, and the great myth is that you want to get out as far away from people as possible and hunker down. And that actually is almost as dangerous as being in a big city with a huge amount of population. And the reason is you can't do it all on your own. You need community. The most successful um, ways to get through extremely difficult times is to be in a small, tight knit community that has some resources. And so I went on a tear all over every chance I got to go anywhere I would go, and I would always be looking at it from this sustainability, regenerative lifestyle.
Yeah.
Would it support? Would the land support? Do the people here? Um, I was living in Central Texas at that time. We spent a lot of time in the Ozarks.
Mhm.
Ozarks are actually a really good region, and one of the main reasons is a reasonable growing climate and water, lots of water.
Mhm.
Almost nowhere, by the way, is there going to be real good soil, and I can tell you why. It's because when this country was founded 200 years ago, over that century, those people living then did not have grocery stores. And so, if you were going to eat, you had a kitchen garden and you had some chickens and, you interacted with the farmers and that food was grown that you ate pretty much locally. And people knew the good soil and good water meant the food was going to be easier to grow than if you were on bare rock somewhere. So all the places where there was good soil and good water, like Austin, Texas, I happen to live right near there. It's right near, the river, the Colorado River,
Yeah.
and it's in an area that used to be fertile. Now it's completely covered with concrete, right? Almost everywhere that there was these really great, perfect growing conditions are now big metropolitan cities, and the places where land is available are pushed way out into lands that would have never been, homesteaded 100 years ago.
Mhm.
Um, so nobody has good soil. So just, let's just deal with that. You're going to need to build soil or buy soil. That's something you're just going to have to do. That's a basic. But to go back to your question, so um, the Ozarks are a good region.
Mhm.
There's an area between Southern Oregon and Northern California, near Medford, the Williams, Grants Pass, some of those areas. There's a lot of growing going on, good temperature, and yet you're kind of far away from metropolitan areas.
Sure.
There's a lot going on. The one of the big everywhere has problems or threats, right? And one of the big problems with the West Coast is that there's some major fault that
Right.
is it's like a period. It's like apparently it's a when, not if, that thing
Yeah.
breaks. Um, Colorado, lots of great small mountain towns where there's a lot of organic food being produced. Of course, Idaho is pretty famous, especially northern Idaho with Jim Rawls
Mhm.
and the American Redoubt. A lot of survivalists there. Northwest Arizona. You'll note that the East Coast is so heavily populated, and there are so many nuclear power plants. Um, they're kind of tough over there.
Mhm.
Uh, there a lot of people do like Tennessee, and then some of the more rural areas, Alabama, Louisiana, southern Georgia, northern Florida. So there are areas. I would really recommend, first of all, go where there's family.
Yeah.
You know, that's really going to be the most important thing. Go where there's family. Um, if you're you don't aren't tied to something economically, like to a job. The other thing is water is unbelievable. We just don't realize how important water is. I mean, growing in the desert actually is one of the easier growing mediums, but you have to have water. Um, uh, Community is another huge
Mhm.
thing. When I go into a small town, and I can quickly assess a community in about 5 minutes and give you a rough idea of their viability. In a small town, the only businesses that can stay in business are the businesses that are supported by the community.
Right.
So if you go in that small town and there's, a little health food shop with organic stuff and vitamins,
Mhm.
and there's a farmer's market and there's some hardware stores, you kind of get a sense right away of what that community is
Yeah.
about. Um, But if you go there and all there is a standard grocery store with just the imported food, and you got, your Dollar General, and that's kind of it, you're like,
Right.
okay, you kind of know what that town's about, right? I also tend to look at spiritual diversity.
Mhm.
I've been to there's a lot of great places in Utah, but the Mormon church is an entire block, and there are no other churches. Now, if you're a Mormon, that's probably going to be great, right? I'm not, right? It's the same thing in the Southeast with Baptist churches. So there's some ways to look at a small town to know
Mhm.
almost immediately whether that would fit in. The other big key to finding an area is a lot of small towns have some gumption. The small towns that have some gumption have some kind of.
Marjorie, you froze. I'm hoping you'll come back on. You may have to dial back in. All right, I'm going to call you because I don't know if you can hear me, but hey, it is Lori. Do you want to try calling back or dialing back in? Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah. Yes, that sounds good. And then we can go on to a couple other things. Sounds good. Thanks, Marjorie. Bye. All right, bye. Hello, Marjorie.
All right, we're back. Good. See
All
you.
right, and I don't think I turned the recording off, so that's fine. My editor will cut out all of that, all of that dead space. So, Marjorie, are there places in the country or communities that that you feel like it's hard to reach? That it's particularly hard to reach. So areas like I know some of the reservations in the Midwest are already food scarce. And so the question is, how do we make sure that we reach people everywhere with this?
Yeah, that's a real challenge. Um, I really that's when we have to make the call. As I said, when I first saw this problem, I said, "Oh my God, if I see the problem, I must be the one to fix it." And
Right.
I'm counting on other neighborhood leaders and champions to stand up and go, "Look, I'm going to take this on." And that's why I've written the book, is to create the resources to make it easier, for people to be able to, start implementing these things. But we've got food deserts, in the hearts of all of our major
Yeah.
cities. We've got all kinds of communities that really, really need help everywhere.
Yeah.
So you're absolutely right. Yeah.
Well, and I think what's wonderful about your book, and I will just plug the book again because it's really complete and really gives a very good picture of how to do this in simple terms that even I can understand and can follow. And that's very helpful as a community or a family tries to shift their patterns. It's really helpful to have practical, clear tips. And I love that about your book. It's just funny because my book I wrote with the same idea that it's practical tips anyone can use to reduce their footprint on the earth, and they really are very simple do this. And it's easy. It's very low cost. It doesn't take a long time. So I love the way you structured your book in such a user friendly way.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. It's designed to take somebody who has never grown anything and have them be able to produce half of their own food.
I love it. So
And
Marjorie,
yeah.
if you were talking to somebody who is just starting on this path, so the sort of the best advice you could give to someone who is either starting on this path and wants to be sort of a leader in this and wants to get their community involved, wants to be the cheerleader and the coach, or if you were just talking to somebody who said, we know that this for my family, I have to do this. What would you say to them?
Yeah, I'd say, well, let's get started.
Mhm.
And it's start producing half of your own food and become a model and a champion for that. And the system that I've developed is easily replicatable and it's really easy to teach. And if the season is right for you to get a garden going, it's only a 100 square foot garden,
Mhm.
get that going. But if it's not right, because, depending on when people watch this, it may not be the time to get a garden going. Start with the chickens. A backyard flock of 6 laying hens will produce 1,500 eggs a year. So that's going to be 3 egg omelets for you every morning for a whole year, plus 500 eggs to give away to friends and family.
I love
So,
it.
it's a lot. It's a lot of
A
food
lot.
and it's deeply nutritious. It's a complete whole food. So, get started with the chickens. And I would recommend the rabbitry third. Most people are not quite up for that. Um, but get this going, and it's all of this can be grown in a backyard size space, and it really only takes about an average of an hour a day, and that will be the most enjoyable hour of your day.
And what do you say to all the people who live in apartments or who live in cities where maybe they
Yeah,
literally don't have a backyard at all? How are they going to be
absolutely.
involved in this?
Yeah. I would say get started growing indoors. If you have a sunny windowsill or a patio, get growing indoors. And if not, buy one of those lamps, get some herbs, grow some sprouts. And there's tremendous power in herbs. Actually, I don't have any here with me right now. They're just outside the door. Um, Everything you learn from those plants in those pots
Mhm.
that everything you learn, like, oh, if you forget to water them, they turn yellow and then brown and the leaves die. Or if you shoot them up with too much fertilizer, they turn bright yellow, or everything you learn, or they don't get enough sun, they get pale and
Mhm.
leggy. Everything you learn, that's going to be exactly how they respond when you actually have a garden and you're
Right.
growing outside, or if you're managing acres of crops. And you might say, Marjorie, I don't ever envision myself managing acres of crops. And I said, yeah, but you just lived through 2020. So we all know that anything is possible. You have
Yep.
no idea where you're going to be. But getting some basic skills right now, just starting to learn to take care of plants. And if you want to expand that, you can grow quail, which produces eggs and meat in a
Mhm.
small apartment. We're having a fun contest at the Grow Network right now in the forums of like, what is this? What are microfoods you can grow in apartments? Another guy goes snails. You can grow snails, which
Sure.
is escargot in French, or mushrooms. Again, like these gourmet culinary foods.
Yeah.
So yes, there's a lot you can do. I'm always a big believer of hold it open in your heart that you want to do this, and you'll find a way.
I like that. My daughters both live in or condos actually, and my one daughter has indoor um, plant plant growing systems. So she
Uh-huh.
has herbs and tomatoes and that kind of thing. My other daughter always, whenever she moves anywhere, makes sure that she can grow on the rooftop. And
Yeah.
so she always has a situation. Her house is full of plants also, but she also always works to be able to plant a garden on the roof. And so,
That's so perfect about like, yes, I'm going to create this in my life.
mhm,
And she's always got the rooftop, right? She always figures it out. Yeah,
yeah.
beautiful.
And community gardens are growing and are such a way to not just grow food for the community, although they're that too, but also community spirit. I think there's research that shows people are prouder of their communities if there's a green space. So, and the stress, as you said, the stress of growing, or the stress of life is actually lessened just by being in a garden, just by being there.
I am super excited about doing it. I live in Puerto Rico right now, and I'm actually starting a community garden. And what I'm excited about are the elders who
Mm.
know all these species of plants that have never been recorded in books or known because it's been wisdom that's just been handed down orally and learning from them. So I am really, really excited about the community garden here.
I love that. So, how do you see, since our show is about creativity and sustainability, and clearly to me, creativity is woven throughout your life, but how would you sort of talk about creativity as it's affected you and you've used it in your life?
Well, actually, the process of growing food is an entirely creative process. I mean, and with this, all the magic, I think the reason we love creative endeavors is to experience that magic. And, from a seed that turns into a plant that gets bigger, and then either you can eat those leaves or it produces a fruit, or, there's that whole thing, or the babies being born, or the chicks coming out and watching the chick peck out of its egg, or the whole thing. Or, uh, gosh, here we have iguanas, beautiful, beautiful 5 and 6 foot iguanas, but
Yeah.
they eat everything green,
Oh,
and so how are we going to, I don't want to kill the iguana, how are we going to protect
right.
this garden from, what are the solutions for that? Or there's so much creativity. Like, gosh, I noticed that this vine is growing here and that tree seems to be doing better because of it, and just how can I replicate that? Or there is so much creativity. Or, I need to get water from here to there. How am I going to do it? Like, there's so many, it's actually really incredibly liberating to realize that you are so much more capable
Yeah,
uh, than you ever thought. You know,
I love
the
that.
whole process is a creative process. Yeah.
It is. A friend of mine in Kenya has a nonprofit. And one of the things she's trying to do is working on replanting trees there because a lot of the trees have been actually taken away for farming. But the problem is that damages everything, and so and particularly they've been taken away for large grazing situations. And so one of the incredibly creative things that she did to help replenish the soil and bring more trees in, which we need, is if they work with the farmers and provide some things for them, and then in exchange, the farmers plant a tree and they provide a watering system for the farmers. And it's literally, I believe, like a pop bottle. And
Uh-huh.
it once a week is all it has to be filled with water, and then it will water the plant. And they can
Nice.
get, so their goal is to get this commitment that once a week you'll fill this watering system that we've provided. And it's just a smart way to figure out how to water plants and how to get the water to where it needs to grow. So um,
Beautiful.
people are amazing.
I, you know, I know there's a tendency to go into gloom and doom because our media, if it bleeds, it leads. That's the thing.
Yeah.
But humans are so unbelievably cooperative and innovative, and I'm fundamentally good-hearted.
Yeah.
And that's part of the reason for the platform of the Grow Network. Our forums are so active and engaged, and what we're doing is we're working to connect people all around the world.
I love it.
uh, on solutions, and it's happening there, and I love it. I love going into my own forums and hanging out, and like, oh my gosh, you did that. Like, well, the idea we were just talking about the snails and the
Yes.
mushrooms, I'm like, that's really brilliant. Yeah.
So I'm excited to engage your network when we have our food challenge in January, and to engage you and because I think that the people in your network will be fabulous recipe sources. All right, everybody, thank you for being here. This is Inclusivi-Talks. Our guest is Marjorie Wildcraft, and we are very happy to have her.
If she's a mountain